Hello everybody and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Video Clips. And believe it or not, September is next week. And September is the beginning of school. So remember, the Diet, Lifestyle, and Intervention course starts next week. This is the course that offers 39 CMEs to doctors, 39 CEs to doctors and nurses. Anybody can take it. It is an amazing program that I promise will change your life. It's 39 classes, 2 to 3 hours each. The second thing is the Nutrition Educator Program for those of you who are enrolled or thinking about doing this. It's an alternative to traditional dietetics. We also have courses that we're offering fall semester that are part of that program, one of which is plant-based nutrition and health. And the reason I bring that up is that some of you who might have been watching these video clips or reading my newsletters and saying, gosh, I would like to maybe think about getting an education, not sure. This is a great first course for you to sign up for because it's the beginning of understanding how research on diet and health is done, some of the limitations, how to read studies. You'll get your feet wet writing papers and making presentations and all that kind of stuff. So I'm teaching it. It's 9 classes. They're in the evening. It's teleconference. And so if you're thinking, just in the back of your mind, kind of sort of thinking that you might want to pursue this, send me an email. We'll talk about it, see if it's the right thing for you to do. And then psychiatric drugs, that doesn't start until October 3rd, why and how to withdraw from psychiatric drugs. Lots of great educational programs going on, and I'm teaching the Autism Boot Camp. I think it's the first weekend in September, the first full weekend in September. So also teleconference, you can be any place on the planet and participate. One last thing. On Thursday, August 31st, the conference tickets will go up the day after. All right, so if you want to come hear the great stars of informed medical decision making, Richard Ablin, who discovered prostate-specific antigen, Jeannie Stolzer, who's going to talk about non-drug approaches to ADHD, Dr. Peter Bregan, Dr. Peter Gertje, who's coming here from Denmark, the co-founder of Cochrane, D. Anthony, the guy who ate his way out of cancer on food choices. I mean, the list of stars that are part of this conference is just amazing. It includes some meals, some fabulous meals based on Dell's recipes. Don't miss this and get your ticket cheaper. Don't pay more money. That's just not smart. All right, couple topics here today. I'm asked almost every day by somebody, should I stop eating grains? Closely followed by, oh my gosh, is gluten toxic to humans? The anti-grain and anti-gluten crowd, I'll tell you what, they lack in evidence. They sure make up for in having loud voices because this comes up all the time. Grains, including those that contain gluten, have been a staple food for humans for literally thousands of years, and they're still staple foods for a good portion of the world's healthiest populations. No need for the vast majority of people to eliminate grains and gluten. The grain and gluten bashers, however, are not influenced by evidence, and as a result, a growing number of people are actually trying to avoid grains and gluten. What has happened, and this is actually one of those good news, bad news things, is that there is a very robust market for gluten-free products. And if you are a celiac patient or a person who has inflammatory bowel disease or something of that nature, and you really do need to avoid some or all gluten foods, my gosh, the stuff is amazing. You could give it to people who didn't have to eat a gluten-free diet. They wouldn't know the difference. Okay, so that's kind of a good news, bad news thing. It's good for some people, not good from the standpoint that the gluten-free stuff tastes really good, including the gluten-free junk foods. Well, a study in the Netherlands shows that that when people back up and say that a lot of people who make these choices to eat gluten-free, they think they're doing something for their health, that automatically just by virtue of the elimination of the gluten, look what I've done for my health. Well, a study in the Netherlands shows that this is not true. And one of the reasons is that some of these products, or a lot of them actually, might be gluten-free, but they have a lot of fat, and they have a lot of salt, and they have a lot of sugar, and they don't have much fiber and other nutrient value. In other words, they're just gluten-free junk foods. The only thing they have going for them is they're gluten-free. So I'll give you some examples. Wasa's gluten-free crisp bread contains 6 times as much fat as the regular whole grain product. Koopman's gluten-free pancake mix contains 2 times as much salt as its 6-grain pancake mix. The fiber content of gluten-free products is just generally much lower because they don't contain the grain. And one of the benefits of eating these kinds of products, to the extent that you can benefit from pancakes and stuff like that, is the fiber in the grain product. So this not only affects those who are avoiding gluten because it's the latest fad, but also celiac patients who have to avoid all gluten. According to Blanca Roestart, president of the Dutch Celiac Society, celiac patients, she says, need to do more than just eliminate gluten because of the poor quality of so many gluten-free products. And by the way, we have a lot of sick celiac patients coming in here, and it's not because they're cheating on their gluten-free diet, it's because they're eating gluten-free garbage instead of food, and they've never repaired their gut with probiotics, etc. So becoming healthy after a diagnosis of celiac disease is not just eliminating gluten from your diet. I have some examples of other products that are real popular among the gluten-free crowd that I thought I'd share with you. One is Larabar. Now, the company's website says it's very clear, only certain people need to avoid gluten. They want to be careful to distance themselves from this anti-grain, anti-gluten crowd because I can understand that. I think they're the lunatic fringe. Having said that, Larabar is listed on a lot of gluten-free diet sites as a great alternative. Now here's the problem. Each bar contains 10 grams of fat, 7 of which are saturated fat, and 24 grams of sugar. Now, if you're stranded in an airport and starving and eating a Larabar, I don't think the world's going to come to an end, or if you have one once in a while because you just need a sweet treat. But this is part of the daily fare. It's not a substitute for food. Glutino's single-serving gluten-free pizza is another one advertised on a lot of gluten-free sites. 19 grams of fat, 8 grams of which are saturated. Udi's blueberry muffins contain 260 calories each, which isn't bad, but they have 9 grams of fat. And I want to read you the ingredients list. This is what I mean by the junk that's in these gluten-free foods. Dried cane syrup. So the first ingredient is sugar, okay? Whole eggs, water, tapioca starch, brown rice flour, wild blueberries, non-GMO canola oil, potato starch, crystal sugar, dried blueberry crumbles, and in parentheses, blueberries and sugar, more sugar. Baking powder, sodium bicarbonate, cornstarch, monocalcium phosphate, salt, vinegar, vanilla extract, sunflower lecithin, lemon zest, lemon peel, sugar, lemon oil, some more sugar, and xanthan gum. Now, this product may be gluten-free, but it's high in fat. It contains 21 grams of sugar. Sugar is the first ingredient, and it appears like 3 more times on the list, and a big number of non-food chemical type ingredients. Well, people who've jumped on the gluten-free craze, and many celiac patients, often eat exactly the same diet that they were eating before their diagnosis. Or their decision to eliminate gluten. They've just gone out and they've bought gluten-free substitutes for all the crap that they were eating before they decided to change. As I said before, this can be a good thing that these things are so delicious. I mean, if you're eating a gluten-free brownie on a holiday and that allows you to have brownies where you couldn't do it before, that's all good. But when those gluten-free brownies and Larabars and all this stuff have become part of the daily fare and you're actually displacing calories from healthy food, this isn't good. And by the way, plant eaters in general make the same mistake a lot of times. They go to the store and they buy health food store versions of all the garbage they were eating, and then they come in here and say, I've been eating a plant-based diet for 2 years and I gained 50 pounds and my blood pressure's higher, not lower. Well, you don't lose weight and resolve your health issues eating Larabars. You do that eating broccoli and apples and potatoes and rice and beans and foods like that. So health is maintained or regained when the dietary pattern is revamped and a plant-based eating style made up mostly of whole foods is adopted. Eating gluten-free treats that are high in fat and sugar and low in fiber doesn't result in health improvement for anybody. Gluten-free doesn't mean healthy, and most people eating a gluten-free diet, for whatever reason they're doing it, would be better off investing their money and time in learning how to adopt an optimal diet. So anyway, maybe one of these days the gluten-free crowd will just wear themselves out. Well, some of these people will die early because they don't take care of themselves eating the way that they do. Maybe that's how we'll get rid of some of them. All right, so on to the next topic. Almost every doctor, when prescribing an antibiotic, instructs the patients, now take all of the pills. Even if you feel better and your symptoms are gone, you must finish the prescription. I've been told that. I'm sure that many of you have been told it too. And one thing that doctors will say is not only do you do this in order to make sure that the infection is really, really gone, but you have to do this to make sure that you're not developing antibiotic-resistant bugs in your system. The problem is that evidence doesn't really support this idea. So an analysis looked at how long antibiotics should be taken in order to be effective, and also examined how long it takes after you start taking the first pill for antibiotic resistance to begin. And researchers determined that advice to finish the prescription in order to avoid resistance is just dead wrong. In fact, it is a well-known fact that antibiotic use, particularly the longer it goes on, leads to increase in the risk of resistance, and this can develop really quickly. For example, in a double-blind, placebo-controlled study, researchers gave subjects a 3 or 7 day course of a macrolide antibiotic or a placebo. They then took swabs of the subjects' throats to look at streptococcal flora before being given the prescription, and then 48 hours, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and 6 months later. They discovered that resistance began with only 3 days of starting to take the first antibiotic pill, and resistant bacteria were still present in the swabs 6 months later. It's been well known for a long time that the longer bacteria are exposed to drugs, the more likely they are to develop resistance, which means that every prescription written, and in fact every pill taken, makes a difference. Little research has been done to establish exactly how much antibiotic is needed to eradicate various forms of infection and how much is too much. Instead, the medical profession has generally followed the advice of Nobel Prize winner Alexander Fleming, who was noted as saying, "If you use penicillin, use enough." A study in the UK is one of the first that's ever been done. It's ongoing now, that will look at this issue in children with community-acquired pneumonia. The researchers will look at the effect of high doses, low doses, 3 and 7 day courses of amoxicillin to determine how much antibiotic is needed exactly and how various treatment regimens affect the development of resistance. This should be done for every condition where antibiotics are a legitimate option in terms of prescribing for treatment. You know, as much as I beat up medicine and I rant and rave about its limitations, the discovery of antibiotics remains one of the most important advancements in medicine of all time. Antibiotics save lives. They saved mine one time. I got bit by a cat back in 1994, and my body was shutting down by the second. I could feel it. So my life has been saved by an antibiotic. But if we continue down the current path of overprescribing, growing resistance, and that sort of thing, these drugs are eventually going to become useless. So to prevent this looming public health disaster, which I haven't read anybody write that there's anything but this going on. In other words, I don't think there are any dissenters on this issue. We really need to do a couple of things. One of them is to pare down the list of things for which we're prescribing antibiotics and be much more conservative. And the second thing is that the instruction should be take the minimum amount of this possible and stop as soon as you feel like your symptoms are gone. Those are the directions that should be given. All right, that's all for today. As usual, pass this on to anybody who you think might enjoy watching it, and I'll be back to you on Thursday with more news.